The sands of time have long buried the secrets of our origins, leaving us with fragments of ancient texts that hint at a history far more complex than we were ever taught. When we open the book of Genesis, we are met with the profound declaration, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth," but for proponents of the ancient astronaut theory, this verse holds a hidden technological resonance. Could the heavens refer to the vastness of space, and could the Elohim, a plural Hebrew word often translated as God, actually represent a collective of highly advanced extraterrestrial beings? As we look back at the Sumerian cuneiform tablets, which predate the biblical texts, we find stories of the Anunnaki, those who from heaven to earth came. The parallels are staggering. Both traditions speak of creators coming down to a formless earth to establish order and life. History suggests that we are not the first advanced civilization to walk this planet, but rather the latest chapter in a long-running cosmic experiment. The revelation deepens when we examine the creation of man. The Bible says, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." The use of the plural "us" has puzzled theologians for centuries. Was this a divine council, or was it a laboratory setting where genetic engineering took place? Ancient alien theorists argue that our DNA was upgraded by these visitors, bridging the gap between primitive hominids and modern Homo sapiens. This would explain the missing link in human evolution that continues to baffle scientists. If we were designed in their likeness, it suggests a biological connection, a heritage that links us directly to the stars. This revelation changes the very foundation of human history, moving us from accidental products of evolution to intentionally designed beings with a cosmic purpose. As we move forward into the era before the Great Flood, the biblical narrative introduces us to the most controversial figures in history, the Nephilim. Genesis 6 describes them as the sons of God who saw the daughters of men and found them beautiful, leading to the birth of giants. In the context of ancient aliens, this is the classic description of a crossbreeding program. The sons of God were not spiritual beings, but physical entities from another world who possessed technology and biology compatible enough to interbreed with humans. The result was a race of hybrids, beings of immense stature and knowledge who ruled over the ancient world as god-kings. This era, often called the Golden Age in mythology, was a time of high technology and megalithic construction, where monuments like the pyramids of Giza and the ruins of Baalbek were erected using methods that still defy modern engineering. If the Nephilim were indeed a hybrid race, the history of our world must be re-evaluated. We find evidence of this ancient high technology scattered across the globe. From the precision-cut stones of Puma Punku to the massive trilithons in Lebanon, the fingerprints of a non-human influence are everywhere. The Bible speaks of Enoch, a man who walked with God and was taken to heaven without dying. In the extra-biblical book of Enoch, he provides detailed descriptions of his journey into the celestial realms. He describes houses made of crystal, flaming portals, and watchers who taught humanity the secrets of metallurgy, astronomy, and cosmetics. To a modern reader, Enoch's descriptions sound remarkably like an abduction or an invitation onto a spacecraft. He wasn't seeing heaven in a religious sense. He was seeing a high-tech orbital station or a mothership. This period of history represents a peak of human and alien collaboration, but it was also a time of great darkness. The intermingling of species led to a corruption of the original design. The biblical revelations suggest that the Great Flood was not just a punishment for sin, but a biological reset button to wipe out the hybrid Nephilim bloodlines and the forbidden technology they introduced. This brings us to the story of Noah and the Ark. While traditionally viewed as a wooden boat, some theorists propose the Ark was a genetic seed vault, a DNA bank designed to preserve the blueprints of life during a global cataclysm. The measurements and the pitch used to seal it suggest a vessel capable of surviving extreme atmospheric pressure or even radiation. As the waters receded, the survivors were tasked with rebuilding a world that had lost its direct link to the gods. However, the influence of these ancient visitors did not vanish. The Tower of Babel represents humanity's desperate attempt to regain that lost technology to build a tower that reaches to the heavens. In Hebrew, the word for tower is migdal, but the intent was to build a shem, a word often translated as name, but which can also mean a sky chamber or a rocket. The confusion of languages was not a linguistic miracle, but a tactical intervention by the Elohim to prevent a primitive and violent humanity from accessing the stars once again. History shows us that every time we get close to the gods, the doors are shut, leaving us to wonder when the next revelation will occur. As we move through the annals of biblical history, we encounter an object so sacred and so dangerous that it required specific, non-conductive clothing to handle, the Ark of the Covenant. While traditional history views the Ark as a wooden chest containing the Ten Commandments, a closer scientific inspection suggests something far more complex. The Bible provides specific blueprints for its construction: layers of gold, which is an excellent conductor, separated by acacia wood, which acts as an insulator. To a modern electrical engineer, this design mirrors a Leyden jar or a high-voltage capacitor. Is it a coincidence that anyone who touched the Ark without protection was struck dead by what the text describes as the fire of the Lord? The biggest Bible revelation regarding the Ark lies in its function. It was topped by 2 golden cherubim whose wings touched, creating a mercy seat. Moses claimed that this was where he communicated directly with the divine. Ancient alien theorists suggest this was a communication device, a radio transmitter or a transducer that allowed the Elohim to speak to their chosen leader from an orbiting craft. The presence of the Shekinah glory, a glowing cloud that rested above the Ark, further supports the idea of an active, energy-emitting technology. When the Israelites marched with the Ark, it leveled the walls of Jericho and dried up the Jordan River. These are not just miracles. They are the descriptions of sonic weapons and localized gravity manipulation. If history is a record of human progress, the Ark represents a leap in technology that shouldn't have existed 3,000 years ago. Perhaps the most famous UFO sighting in the Bible occurs in the book of Ezekiel. The prophet describes a whirlwind coming from the north, accompanied by a great cloud and flashing fire. Within this cloud, he sees 4 living creatures, but his description is intensely mechanical. He speaks of wheels within wheels with rims full of eyes, which many believe were actually glowing portholes or sensors. The creatures didn't turn as they moved. They moved with the speed of lightning. In the 1970s, Joseph Blumrich, a NASA engineer who originally set out to disprove the ancient alien theory, ended up designing a spacecraft based on Ezekiel's precise measurements. He concluded that Ezekiel was describing a landing module from a mothership. This revelation shifts our understanding of angels from winged spiritual beings to extraterrestrial pilots wearing protective gear. Ezekiel describes the sound of their wings as the noise of great waters and the voice of the Almighty. This auditory experience matches the roar of a modern jet engine or a heavy rocket. He further describes a firmament above their heads that looked like terrible crystal, a transparent dome or cockpit. Upon this dome was a throne, and on the throne sat a figure that looked like a man, but glowed like burning metal. If this wasn't a vision of a physical, technological craft, then the level of detail Ezekiel provides is an impossible coincidence. This wasn't a hallucination. It was a first-hand report of an advanced craft landing on the banks of the Chabar River. The destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah is often cited as a story of divine judgment, but the physical descriptions of the event are hauntingly similar to a nuclear explosion. The Bible says that brimstone and fire rained down from the heavens, and the entire plain was consumed. Lot's wife, who looked back, was turned into a pillar of salt. Scientists and alternative historians suggest that she may have been instantly vaporized by a thermal blast, leaving behind a white mineral residue. Even more startling is the warning the angels gave to Lot: escape for your life, lest you be consumed. They were working on a strict timeline, as if a countdown to a detonation had already begun. Today, in the region of the Dead Sea, archaeologists have found layers of scorched earth and melted brickwork that require temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees Celsius to form temperatures that natural wildfires or ancient warfare could not produce. Is it possible that the gods used tactical nuclear weapons to eliminate a rogue colony or a failed genetic experiment? The history of the area is scarred by this event, and the biblical text remains as a chilling record of a high-tech strike that turned a fertile valley into a desolate, salt-ridden wasteland. This revelation forces us to ask, were the ancient gods truly benevolent, or were they powerful cosmic entities involved in a brutal war for planetary control? When we look at the timeline of the Bible, we cannot ignore the land of Egypt, the place where the Israelites were held in bondage and where Moses was raised as a prince. Traditional history tells us the pyramids were tombs built by copper tool-wielding slaves, but the mathematical and geological revelations suggest a far more profound purpose. The Great Pyramid of Giza is aligned to true north with an accuracy that modern builders struggle to replicate. It incorporates the dimensions of the Earth, the speed of light, and the distance to the stars within its geometry. Some researchers propose that the pyramids were not tombs at all, but ancient power plants or resonant energy devices designed to tap into the Earth's telluric currents. In the biblical narrative, the construction of Pithom and Ramses is mentioned, but the underlying history of Egypt points to a first time, or Zep Tepi, when the gods lived on Earth. Could the Israelites have been used to maintain these ancient high-tech structures? The Ark of the Covenant, which we previously identified as a potential power source, was sized perfectly to fit inside the granite coffer in the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid. This revelation suggests a global network of technology where the Ark acted as a mobile battery or a key to activate a larger grid. If the ancient gods were extraterrestrial, they didn't just leave us with stories. They left us with a massive, stone-based hardware system that we are only now beginning to understand through the lens of physics and electromagnetics. One of the biggest Bible revelations that bridges history and ancient alien theory is the obsession with bloodlines. From the detailed genealogies of Genesis to the strict laws of the Levites, the Bible places an immense emphasis on purity. Why was the Creator so concerned with genetic lineages? If we accept the theory of the Nephilim, the hybrid offspring of extraterrestrials and humans, the reason becomes clear. The Great Flood was a biological cleansing, but the giants reappeared after the flood in the land of Canaan. We see the Israelites commanded to wipe out entire tribes like the Enochim and the Rephaim. From an ancient alien perspective, this wasn't just tribal warfare. It was a genetic war. The gods were attempting to protect the human genome from being completely overtaken by aggressive, non-human hybrid DNA. This leads to a startling revelation about modern humanity. If these hybrids integrated into the population, do some of us still carry alien DNA today? Some researchers point to the Rh-negative blood type, which lacks the rhesus factor found in primates, as a potential sign of this ancient intervention. History is not just a record of dates and battles. It is a record of a biological struggle to define what it means to be truly human in a universe shared with more advanced beings. While the Bible speaks of chariots of fire, other ancient texts like the Indian Mahabharata and Ramayana describe Vimanas, flying machines capable of traveling between cities and into space. The descriptions are identical to the cloud of glory that led the Israelites through the desert. This cloud was dark by day and glowing by night. It emitted heat, made noise, and followed a deliberate flight path. It stood at the entrance of the tabernacle like a hovering drone. When we compare these global accounts, a historical pattern emerges. The gods were not localized to one religion. They were a global presence using consistent technology. The revelations in the Bible regarding the heavenly host describe an organized military structure. These were not angels with feathered wings, a concept added by later Renaissance artists, but a specialized crew of extraterrestrial beings operating a fleet of advanced aircraft. The history of the ancient world is a history of a planet under the administration of a higher intelligence, and the Bible is the most detailed logbook of their interactions with a specific group of people chosen to carry their message forward. One of the most profound and widely recognized revelations in the Bible is the Star of Bethlehem. Traditionally viewed as a celestial miracle or a rare planetary alignment, the details provided in the Gospel of Matthew tell a much more mechanical story. The text states that the star went before the Magi and stood over the specific location where the child was. In the vacuum of space, stars and planets follow fixed orbital paths. They do not navigate, change speed, or hover over a single house. This suggests that the star was not a stellar body at all, but a controlled aerial craft, a drone, or a scout ship guiding the travelers to a predetermined destination. Ancient alien theorists argue that this was a coordinated effort by the Watchers to ensure the protection of a high-value genetic and spiritual asset. If the birth of Jesus was a new covenant, it may have been a fresh stage in the cosmic experiment, requiring a physical presence in the sky to direct the world's wisest men. This craft didn't just shine. It communicated. It operated with a level of precision that matches modern GPS technology, leading its followers across vast deserts to a precise coordinate in Bethlehem. History has romanticized this as a glowing light, but the biblical description points toward a tactical navigational beacon used by extraterrestrial monitors to mark a pivotal moment in human history. King Solomon is often regarded as the wisest man in history, but he was also the builder of the most technologically advanced structure of the ancient world. The Temple of Jerusalem was not merely a house of worship, it was a complex machine. The Bible describes walls lined with pure gold and a holy of holies that was a perfect cube. This chamber was designed to house the Ark of the Covenant, which we previously identified as a high-voltage capacitor. When the Ark was placed inside the temple, the cloud of glory filled the room so intensely that the priests could not stand dot. In terms of modern physics, the temple functioned as a resonant chamber. The gold-lined walls acted as a Faraday cage, containing and focusing the electromagnetic energy emitted by the Ark. Some researchers suggest that Solomon was using this technology to create a bridge of light, allowing for interdimensional communication or energy harvesting. The source of Solomon's wisdom, according to some apocryphal texts, was a magic ring or a device that allowed him to control demons, which could be a primitive description of automated drones or artificial intelligence. The revelation here is that the temple was a power plant of the divine, a place where heaven, space, and earth met through a sophisticated interface of gold, crystal, and sacred geometry. Throughout the Old Testament, the prophets describe encounters with flying scrolls and baskets that fly through the air. In the book of Zechariah, he sees a flying scroll that is 20 cubits long and 10 cubits wide, roughly the dimensions of a modern missile or a small spacecraft. He is told that this scroll is a curse that goes out over the face of the whole earth. To an ancient person, a cylindrical object flying through the sky could only be described as a scroll, but to us, it sounds like a surveillance drone or a ballistic device. This reveals a history where humanity was being constantly monitored by the eyes of the Lord, which the Bible says run to and fro throughout the whole earth. These eyes were likely a network of satellite-like drones or scout ships maintaining a constant vigil over the development of the human race. The glory of the Lord was not a vague feeling. It was a physical, visible, and often dangerous presence that moved with intent. It had a weight. The Hebrew word kavod literally means weight or heaviness. It emitted radiation, and it required strict protocols to approach. We are looking at a history of planet-wide surveillance conducted by a technologically superior civilization that the ancients could only describe as divine. When we turn to the final book of the Bible, the book of Revelation, we find ourselves in the middle of a narrative that reads less like a traditional religious text and more like a description of a galactic-scale war. The Apostle John, exiled on the island of Patmos, is taken up in the spirit of phrase that mirrors the abduction experiences of Enoch and Ezekiel. What he describes is a series of aerial and atmospheric events that defy natural explanation. He speaks of stars falling from heaven, but these stars don't destroy the earth. Instead, they act with intent. One star, named Wormwood, poisons the waters, while another star is given a key to open a bottomless pit. In the language of ancient aliens, these are not celestial bodies, but directed energy weapons or landing pods carrying biological or technological payloads. The revelation of the war in heaven describes Michael and his angels fighting against a dragon. This is a classic depiction of an aerial dogfight or a conflict between two opposing extraterrestrial factions. The dragon and his angels are cast down to earth, suggesting a forced landing or a strategic retreat. John describes creatures emerging from the smoke of the bottomless pit that look like locusts, but have crowns like gold, faces like men, and stings in their tails. To an ancient observer, a mechanical attack drone or a high-tech armored vehicle would be impossible to name, so they used the vocabulary of nature. These locusts that make the sound of many chariots rushing into battle perfectly describe the mechanical roar of a drone swarm or a fleet of low-altitude aircraft. The climax of the Bible is the descent of the New Jerusalem. John describes a city coming down out of heaven from God. But look at the dimensions. It is a perfect cube, roughly 1,500 miles in each direction. In the context of history and physics, a city of this size and shape is not a traditional building. It is a colossal space station or a cubic mothership. John notes that the city is made of pure gold, like clear glass, and has no need for the sun or the moon because the glory of God provides the light. This is a description of an internally powered, self-sustaining artificial environment. The biggest Bible revelation here is that the goal of the gods was always a return to Earth in a physical, technological habitat. The gates of the city are made of single pearls, and the foundations are precious stones materials that could represent advanced crystalline technology or quantum computing cores. This ship is the Tabernacle of God, a mobile command center that bridges the gap between the stars and our world. History is not ending. It is being upgraded. The New Jerusalem is the final evidence that the gods of the Bible were never disconnected. Spirits, but a civilization capable of interstellar travel and planetary engineering on a scale that dwarfs our current understanding. As we piece together the fragments of this cosmic puzzle, the final revelation becomes clear. The Bible is a chronicle of extraterrestrial intervention in human evolution. From the genetic spark in Genesis to the high-tech war in Revelation, we see the fingerprints of their Elohim. They gave us law, they gave us language, and they gave us the blueprints for civilization. They left behind megalithic markers like the pyramids and the temple to act as time capsules, waiting for a generation with the scientific knowledge to decode them. History is now entering a new phase. As our own technology begins to mirror the miracles of the past, genetic editing, directed energy weapons, and space exploration, we are finally able to see the Bible for what it truly is, a manual of human heritage. The ancient aliens are not visitors from another world. They are the architects of our own. The promise of the second coming is not just a religious hope, but a historical certainty, the return of the creators to check on their creation. We are the descendants of the stars, and the Bible is the record of our journey back to them. One of the most staggering revelations of the modern era is the discovery of the Bible code, or equidistant letter sequencing (ELS). Mathematicians have found that when the Hebrew text of the Torah is treated as a continuous string of letters, complex codes emerge that predict historical events from the French Revolution to the moon landing thousands of years before they happened. From an ancient alien perspective, this suggests that the Bible is not just a book of stories, but a digitally encrypted database. No human author in the Bronze Age could have structured a narrative while simultaneously encoding future history into the mathematical spacing of the letters. This points to the use of a supercomputer or an artificial intelligence that oversaw the writing of the scriptures. If the Elohim were advanced extraterrestrials, they didn't just give us a moral code. They gave us a time-locked message meant to be decrypted only when our own computer technology reached a certain level. The Bible is, in essence, a high-tech time capsule written in a linguistic code that proves its non-human origin. It is a masterpiece of information theory that suggests our history was pre-programmed, or at least known by a civilization that exists outside of our linear perception of time. To truly understand the biggest Bible revelations, we must step outside the biblical text and look at the global historical record. The gods of the Bible, the Elohim, share a nearly identical profile with the Anunnaki of Sumer, the Varakashas of the Andes, and the star people of the Hopi. Every ancient culture speaks of sky gods who descended to Earth, taught humanity the secrets of agriculture and astronomy, and promised to return. In the Sumerian texts, the Anunnaki came to Earth in search of gold to repair their atmosphere, a detail that might explain why the Bible is obsessed with gold. From the Ark of the Covenant to the streets of the New Jerusalem, the history we have been taught is a fragmented version of a much larger interstellar narrative. The Tower of Babel was not the only gateway to the gods. The ziggurats of Mesopotamia and the pyramids of Mexico were all part of a global infrastructure designed to facilitate the arrival and departure of these celestial visitors. The Bible is the Western world's piece of a global puzzle that, when assembled, reveals that humanity has never been the master of its own destiny, but rather a protected species under the stewardship of a cosmic hierarchy. As we reach the conclusion of this 1000-word journey through the mysteries of the Bible, ancient aliens, and history, we are left with one final, earth-shattering revelation. If we were made in their image, and if their DNA is woven into our own, then we are not merely the subjects of the gods, we are their descendants. The kingdom of heaven that Jesus spoke of may not be a spiritual dimension, but a physical destination among the stars. Our history is a cycle of intervention and independence. The ancient aliens departed to allow us to develop on our own, leaving behind the Bible as a guide and a reminder of where we came from. But the text is clear, they are coming back. The great revelation is that we are on the verge of a cosmic reunion. As we look up at the night sky, we are not looking at an empty void, but at our ancestral home. The Bible is the bridge between our primitive past and our technological future. It is the story of a species with amnesia finally waking up to the truth: we are the children of the Elohim. And the stars are our inheritance. The final and perhaps most disturbing revelation is the realization that the technology described in the Bible has never truly left our atmosphere. Throughout history, the clouds of glory and pillars of fire have been rebranded to fit the vocabulary of the era. In the Middle Ages, they were celestial shields. In the 1940s, they were FOO fighters. And today, they are classified by the military as UAPs. When we look at the declassified footage from modern fighter jets, we see craft that move with the same speed of lightning described by the prophet Ezekiel. They defy the laws of inertia, they have no visible means of propulsion, and they can move from space to the deep ocean in a matter of seconds. This brings our historical investigation full circle. The gods who instructed Moses on the construction of the ark are the same intelligences currently being tracked by our most advanced radar systems. The Bible was not writing about a dead history, but an active, ongoing presence. The watchers are still watching. The angels are still patrolling the firmament. Every revelation we have uncovered, from the genetic manipulation of our DNA to the high-tech weaponry used on the plains of Sodom, points to a persistent, non-human oversight of the human race. History is not a straight line of progress. It is a controlled environment.